All right, so Jerry, we're going live. I'm looking for the record button.
I think
It
we're just
is.
gonna have to grab the recording off of Facebook. It looks like that's the way this is gonna work this time.
You're probably right. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, Jerry. Introductions.
All right. Well, nice to meet you, those of you who are joining us. If you are joining us on Facebook as opposed to on the StreamYard, I will very shortly be popping in on Chris's page and my own to make sure that you have the link to the StreamYard, and you are welcome to join us right on the StreamYard already. Most of you have, if you follow Chris or I, you've already seen those links in there, but we'll make sure that we share them again just so that you've got them. And the reason you might want to be with us live on the StreamYard is because if you have questions as we cover stuff, we want to be able to answer those. So nice to meet you. I'm Red. This is Chris, or for me, it's this direction actually. I don't know what direction on your computer.
I.
Um,
Hey, yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's confusing. I don't know how the TikTokers do it.
so um so we are actually two of the four coaches of the Working Writers Mastermind, and I'm just going to show you real quick a little bit what that is. So this is the Working Writers Mastermind, which, if I can open it up here we go here. um we are four coaches who have turned that dream job of being a full-time working writer into our day job, because we believe it is possible to make a living with your words if you have a working writing model. So that is exactly what we're all about. So if you come to our page, I know this is really complicated, but it's just workingwritersmastermind.com. You can learn all about us. You actually even get a whole free lesson here, just like the lessons that you're getting tonight, which are free. As you see, there's Chris and I right there at the top. We'll tell you a little bit about what our writing model is. We've got two other wonderful authors as well, AG Wedgeworth and Tiffany Rose Nickel. We are game writers. We are novelists. We are live sale writers. We are nonfiction writers. Truly, we're a really a mixed batch of different people. When you go on here, you can also click in and you can join the Working Writers Mastermind, where you get access to working writers, all four of us, and all of the expertise that we can bring you for just $50 a month. And that's just the beginning of some of what we offer. So part of the offer that we have as Working Writers Mastermind is this September, which we are in right now. We are actually kind of working on putting some of our behind the scenes stuff in place. Some of our systems, which we will tell you guys are really the heart of being a working writer, is really having strong systems that help to run your artistic life like a business. And so, because of that, throughout September, we've been holding some Ask Me Anything author hours. And Chris and I are bringing you two different sessions that, confession, we're bringing you because the recording didn't work on our streams the first time. And so we have to re-record them. So we thought, well, this is a perfect opportunity for you guys to see what we're all about. So later this evening, I'll be talking about authors' ethical AI usage. And Chris is going to be bringing us live event sales. Before you do that, Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chris, and I write books that nerds like. Jerry, I don't think you actually count the sales ones, but I'm also talking about direct sales on your website, just kind of overall sales portals. But my specialty really is in selling books in a live setting. I can't help but notice that you have a much nicer background than me. I'm currently surrounded by lead-based paint and asbestos, and so
That is typically your creative spot of choice, Christopher. I don't
it
know.
is.
I have to say, like you, I do a lot of live sales. So I have not had the opportunity to enjoy the home that I moved to this summer. And so it is for me quite a joy to be able to be here, and so I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting outside tonight as we do this.
I did do one session outside my porch, and it was lovely. But My dogs have been a little extra today, and I don't think that they would leave me alone on camera. So anyway, let's kind of dive into this. As I said, I kind of specialize in doing live sales. The bulk, and I know this was a question the last time we hosted this from the audience, asking about like how much of your sales percentage wise. Probably 95% of all of my sales dollars for me come online. Um,
Mhm.
or not, I'm sorry, not online. The opposite of online. Most people think online, that's where authors make all your money.
You mean
That can be the case in certain sales models. For me, even when my sales happen online, most of them are actually from from paperbacks and not from ebooks. So I do sell a fair amount of ebooks, but the lion's share of my income is from people buying paperbacks and just loving that as a format, which I is something when you notice details, you can try and leverage those details and then be better at sales. And we're gonna talk about that because I'm going to find that present button right now and
okay.
hop into
Well,
my slideshow.
while you do that, I just want to remind everybody one more time if they are catching us on Facebook, I'm just now putting in those links one more time on the live show on Facebook. I will be actually turning off my camera here very shortly, and I will actually be able to moderate any of your questions. And Chris is will keep on talking unless we interrupt him, right? So,
That's pretty much the case.
if you know a
I
question,
do love the sound of my voice.
this is we're creatives. This is what we do. So if you are putting in a question, just know that I'm going to interrupt Chris and I will bring him that question. So on Facebook, I've now on both of our pages shared that link. So please join us live on the StreamYard where you can share your questions. Otherwise, we will, of course, try to answer your questions afterward. And with that said, Chris, I'd say take away the stage and I'm going to mute myself until I need to get your attention.
Well, excellent. So, I think the first thing worth discussing, this is very foundational to even why even be selling, is that there's a fundamental difference, and many authors are going to define this differently. There's a difference between being an author and being a writer. I think writers write for themselves, and this is my definition. Like they write because they got to get the words out and they really don't want other people to see them. Like this is private, this is journaling, this is me just the cathartic release of putting words on paper, whether it's me like I mentioned, journaling, keeping a diary, or just writing about things that I love, versus an author who, when you're an author, you're partnering with your audience and you want them to engage with your story. And your story really doesn't have much meaning. Like your characters aren't really alive unless somebody's reading it. And so, to the author, to the person with that mindset, sales matter. Sales validate us. I mean, they always matter because if you're full time, you need them or you die, because you got to pay the bills, you got to buy the groceries. So they always kind of matter, but the sales matter extra because they validate you and what you do. So we're going to talk about sales, both online sales, and you should be able to see my cursor when I tap this button. We're also going to talk about live sales, and we're talking about kind of how to maximize your sales. We're going to talk more briefly about online sales, um, even though it's a much bigger sphere. Uh, because there's been a lot written. I think once you start, it's a very linear path, and there's many of those very linear paths. You just got to kind of pick one, and then some of them will start to overlap with each other, and you will figure most of that out just by starting. So anyway, I want to mention that Amazon is obviously it's the elephant in the room. It's the giant behemoth. Refusing to do business at Amazon is a bad idea for writers because Amazon controls the majority of the book market. They've just something, and I've got. We actually did a graphic in a different class where we showed the pie chart. It's something like over like worldwide, it's 65 to 75% of the overall book sales market. Many authors like to focus specifically on Amazon for their digital sales. There's many pros and cons to that. I will. I think I talked too long about this last time. We threatened to go long, but and I want to make sure we save some Q&A time. There are models that work especially well on Amazon if you're doing the exclusive arrangements. but there are many other places that you can also publish. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket either, even though it's a very big basket. But certain genres will do especially well, romance especially, things with a whale reader, right? With a reader who's going to read um, 7 to 10 books a week, and love to binge read stuff. Those are typically romance leads the income dollars at the Kindle Unlimited program every single month. Close to that, military sci-fi. You have to have about 6 books really even to begin making money with that. And there's a lot of great books out there. Let me see if I got a recommendation. Actually, here's one. Here's one by a peer. It's kind of an oldie but a goodie. Release strategies. Craig Martell talks about that quite a bit. That's one maybe worth looking into. He's got a lot of great numbers. That's the thing that's a little outdated because this industry changes every 3 months. It's all different. So you got to keep keep doing your research and your homework. So there are a lot of places that are aggregators. They will push your story to all the relevant platforms. That's going to be things like Draft to Digital, where you can publish on Draft to Digital instead of Amazon, and it will put your book on Amazon. You'll put it on Smashwords, on Barnes and Noble. It'll put it on Draft. I almost said one that it doesn't put it on. It will put it on iBooks. It'll put like all the places, and will also push it to library systems, which is fantastic. That's why I love Draft to Digital. Draft to Digital doesn't do certain things. It's kind of a sticky wicket when it works with Amazon. I've had some struggles with the way those systems interact. It doesn't push to Google Books. There are other aggregators that will push to the Google Play market. There are, let me see, okay. I talked about all those things in my notes. Let me see. There is a new trend currently in the digital sales sphere on getting away from Amazon. I have kind of jumped on board some of that. And by getting away from Amazon, we don't mean stop doing all the business there. But what we mean is try to capture as much of the sales that Amazon would be taking, because they take a big chunk out of our sales, right? If I could have that extra chunk, I could keep all of my royalties, and then those people would probably, if they really like it and it was easy to buy from me, will probably buy from me again. So I can build a direct sales funnel to those people. We're seeing this even now in the romance market. A lot of authors are electing to sell direct and keep all of those profits in their hands. Now here's something worth watching out for. Let me see. Make sure I'm on the right screen. Yep. So here's something to watch out for, though. I see a lot of authors do this. Like I said, I specialize in live events, and they want people like, oh, I also have ebooks, because they say, oh, I only buy ebook nowadays. Okay, well, here's a card with a QR that's going to take you to my website. That's great. Put that in their hand. All business sense says that will work, except that it does not. People just do not click the link. I handed out when I really started getting into the audiobook market. I had my sales channel for my digital stuff, so my ebooks and my audiobooks. And I told people, I'm like, hey, Audible is $15.99 a month. It's $16 for a credit. And a credit you can listen to any book. You like my book? That's great. How about I give you this thing here? You can like, my books are $15, so I'm a little cheaper than Amazon. All the money goes to me, so you're supporting a local author. And also, here's a code right on here. Type in like this 5-letter statement, like books 20 or something, whatever it is, and you'll save 25% off. Like, and I'm still going to make more money if I do that, probably 2 to 3 times the amount versus what I would get off of an Audible payment. So, like, oh, that sounds great. I'm definitely going to do it. When a buyer says they're definitely going to do something, they are absolutely not going to. That's just something I have learned. So I handed out 1,000 of these cards, and I had one. So the thing with it is you can track how much traffic your QR generates. And so this link, the way to get this with a discount, I knew that this one purchase out of 1,000 cards handed out had come from that specific QR code that I gave out. So 1 in 1,000. I don't even, what is the percentage in that? It's like, that's
A tenth of it.
0.01%?
Yeah, 1/10%. So I do have a question though for
Yeah.
you from one of our viewers. Doug asks, when we do get those sales of ebooks, he is somewhat familiar with your booth. You guys have booths near each other before. He knows that you have USBs that you also sometimes give with your.
Yes.
How do you package this? What is your price scaling on this? Tell us a little bit about maybe some of the unique packaging that you have when it comes to moving ebooks.
So I actually have my ebooks and my audiobooks on flash drives that are packaged very nice. Like it looks like a book. It's on a professional digital, what do we call that? Like a digital business card. So it's about the size of a business card. It's a little thicker. It flips open. It's got all the files on there. I sell those things for, and then I put like a series on there. So I'll have 3 to 4 books, digital books, both audio and the ebook on there for about $30. So less than the cost of 2 books on Audible, if you're paying, the price per credit. And so that's what I'm doing. I buy those. They're about $750 a piece to have them made. They come in a little clamshell. They're a nice looking little package. Um, so if I'm making 30, here's the math on it. Let's say it cost me 8 a piece. I'm selling them for 30, so I'm making, what is that? I'm bad. I'm real bad at math. That's why I write. That's let me see. $30 minus 8, me $22, which is far more than I would make. So now let's do the math. I make $22 selling it there. They get it in their hand. I can build a connection with them by autographing the back of the card. They have something cool, and people they don't buy when they leave your booth. They might come back to your booth if they say that they don't want to carry stuff. They're more likely to come back to your booth and buy something later than they are to buy if they've left your booth and then buy it online later. Just the numbers are, they're just in the crapper. And by in the crapper, I mean, I still do okay and I still make sales, but the amount of people that say that they're going to buy it later versus the ones that do, we're talking, it's probably, maybe at best, it's maybe high single digits. It might be like 12%, but it's not. It's not great. It's probably more like 6 or 4%. I will actually buy it. So the math is better. So if I sell, I make about $3. I'm just guesstimating here off of a sale on Audible, the Amazon audiobook system. So if I make $3 times 4, I make $12 to sell through the whole 4 in a digital package without me paying anything for the production, for the bandwidth, for the hosting, all those things. Versus in the booth, I've got my card, sold it, made about $22, and made a better connection with a listener, reader, and so for me, that's just has been what worked. But let me jump back over to my notes. So yeah, so if you build a strong connection and you network with your people, kind of like this, people will begin to shop with you directly, and you can use Shopify, Shopify store, and integrate that into your website. PayHip is another great. PayHip is free; they charge a percentage. I used PayHip before I went over to Shopify, and I've got a few specific reasons that I've done that, which are even more relevant, literally as of this week. And I'll maybe talk about that later if somebody reminds me. But these store systems are automated so the buyers can pay and check out immediately. Square will do the same thing for your physical products. They can buy it if you buy it on my line on the Square site I had set up before. It would email me, and it would give me the information. I would package the book up, autograph it, mail it out, and it would go up probably in the same day. So it's like a professional system that you can set up. But there is one missing piece, and that's automation, in this automation, that's distribution. So we have to connect the dots from a sales site. So if you've got authorchristopherDschmitz.com, which is my website, you need a few basic tools to make all those components work. You need that browsable place. That's the website, authorchristopherDschmitz.com. You need a place to a browsable place to serve and search that product so people can look at all of them. Then you need a way to take people's money and complete the transaction, right? That's going to be like Square is like that. Square will process the money and distribute it to me, so that I get the money, and will track my data, like how much do I owe for the taxes, that kind of thing. And then you need a way to distribute the product to the consumer, especially in the digital world. Kind of how do you do that? You should also get a way to bridge the tech gap, and you probably are going to also need some customer support, because if you don't have those things, then you are the customer support. You're also going to need uh, the other critical component, and this is something you can't control. You can influence, but not control it. That's traffic. By influencing it, you can use ads to try and drive people, or you can give them the QR code or a bookmark or whatever it is to get people to your site to begin with. But the traffic component that's the wild card. That's the other people coming in with the interest, and then everything else is going to revolve around you trying to connect your dots, to them. Let
So,
me
Chris,
see.
I have a question for you here.
Yeah.
The question is, when you are talking about doing sales on your website, are you just talking about ebooks and audiobooks, or do you sell print books there too? And if so, how do you manage all of those mailings?
I do both. My print books is probably I probably get a few sales a month. And it's probably similar on my ebooks, and that's mainly because right now I'm not driving any traffic with the ads. When I do, I get a lot more of that, and I've been toying with the idea of ramping up my ads again. Except that in the election season right now, like I just got an email today. I'm specifically holding back until after November, just because the price and the cost per ads right now is being driven up, because ads are subject to like the laws of supply and demand. So we have the all of the political advertisers, not just candidates but also super PACs, and that's not just the national election, but it's also going to be everything from school board seats to local stuff. People are going to be buying that ad space, and that's going to make the price per click go up. So I'm holding off intentionally and driving traffic by other means, a lot of that being organic stuff through my newsletter. But when I am driving traffic, as I was earlier in the spring, my sales are probably 4 to 8 times what they are now. And a lot of those, a lot of the revenue from those sales is eaten up by the cost of the ads. But that's where you have to find your level and then start scaling up at those. But I do sell both. But specifically right now, I'm talking about the digital file side, because I'm about to show you a graphic right here. So this is, I mentioned the traffic, right? This is the consumer. You need all of those things that I just said. You got to have the portal, the website. You got to have something to handle the transaction, the distribution, the tech side. Like what does that look like? You've got the customer support. So this is on this one going down. This is a personal website. This is authorchristopherDschmitz.com 1.0 before I redid this last year. So I had something that would process my transactions. I was using Square at the time. So you're going to need some kind of a third party app, unless you want to have to like put your phone number, like, yes, feel free to call me and give me your credit card information, or carrier pigeon me $30 cash, and when I get it I will mail the book. Like, you got to have something that is going to work to process the transactions, that's trustworthy and reliable to the consumer. Otherwise the traffic here is going to go to the right, this one being Amazon. So the traffic could go here, it could go here, or to any of these other ones in the lower line heading to the right. If they go to Amazon, the transaction is all built in because people know and trust Amazon. The distribution is built in. If you buy one of my books on, let's say, I think you probably see my picture in a picture. You buy my book here on sale. It's called Sell More Books at Live Events. If you buy this on Amazon, the transaction's taken care of. They take the money. They give me the money. What is it like? They hold it for like 6 years, right? It's too long. It's 60 days. The distribution, they're going to deliver that file immediately to somebody's Kindle. The tech side is built in. I bought a device from Amazon. Customer support is built in. I don't have to worry about that. But they take a big chunk out of the revenue. So with my website, that was with the with my website, the transaction, that third party app's going to process it. I'm going to get the money like immediately or within 48 hours ish. Distribution is probably going to be manual unless you have some kind of a third party app, which we'll talk about in a second. So you could just be like, yeah, okay, so I use Square. Now I need to go in and directly email that person with an EPUB file, that's the format. It's like a docx is a Word format. A JPEG is like a graphic format. EPUB is an ebook works, if you didn't know that. Then tech sideload, they're going to have to you're going to have to walk them through how to open that EPUB file on their device. If they have a Kindle, if they have a Nook, if they have an iPad, they're going to have to learn how to sideload this. And it's actually very easy. But the first time you do it, if it were to tell you how to do it, it would sound crazy complicated. It's really not. But it will sound that way, and that will deter some customers. And then the customer support, once they have problems with the side loading or don't understand something, they're calling you. And your time is valuable. Your customer support time means you don't have time to write your next thing. So one thing you can do is use Shopify, which can integrate into your site here. Transactions built in that way. You don't have to deal with it because that's what Shopify does. You need a distribution partner. Now, Shopify does have some built in, and that's what I was talking about earlier. One of the reasons why I kind of recommend that now is because Shopify will also be your distribution partner for your digital files if you need them to be. So for me, I use them to distribute my audiobook files while I'm using Square, or not sorry, Square. I'm using BookFunnel, which is it's a well-known file providing system and helps you build your newsletters and stuff. They will actually distribute your book if you link it into your site through the Shopify system or through the PayHip system. Tech, sideload, or third party, but BookFunnel will do all of it. They have their own app for reading as well. And so this is a neat graphic. If you are one of our paying members, we actually have all of these things as digital downloads, so you can go through all of this as well as another worksheet later on. But all of these things, these are just different options on how you can build a system and a network. Even, for example, I do a lot of stuff on Etsy. I don't sell on Etsy, but I buy a lot of digital products from other providers over there. Everything from 3D minis to pieces of art. Transactions built in. What they do is you could use this to distribute your audio or your ebooks. They just have their files, most of these creators, on a Google Drive, and it automatically kicks back when you buy a product, a direct link to that Google Drive page so you can download it at your own leisure. Of course, the customer support is all you. You've got to know how to do the side loading as the consumer. But this is another great option, and you can usually pick multiple pieces out of this system if you want. So I want to talk live sales now. Let me come back here. So we're about we're about 25 minutes deep on this. So we're going to talk about the thing that I'm maybe the best at as we move forward, and that's going to be how to sell stuff directly to people. Now, the digital sales are great because they're things that you don't really have to put. Once you built the system, you should be able to mostly automate the process. People sometimes do come back and they're going to browse your website and buy, and your super fans will come to your website and buy the next thing when it releases. Or they'll send their friends out like, oh, we're going to do a book club. You got to go and buy this book. I read it. It was so great. I met the author. They were really cool people and whatever. So the way this really works, and this, I'm going to read you a quote from my book, Sell More Books at Live Events. In sales, you have a story as a vendor, which is going to include your personality, your mood, your disposition, etc. Your customer has their story as well. That's going to include all the distractions of family, cell phones, their budget, their personal concerns, their baggage. Your desire is to intersect your circle with theirs and then move that larger circle, your product in this case, a book, into their sphere. So you want to show how it's relevant, how it meets a need, it appeals to a common interest and the like. So I'm very good at intersecting my circle with others, and that's why I am not a great digital marketer. Most of the things that make me good at being live skills are the soft skills. those are things that come down to nuance and tone. It's not just in what is said, but also in what's left unsaid. So being good at sales is a lot like being a minister. And there's an old adage for pastors that goes, they won't remember what you said from the pulpit, but they'll remember how you made them feel. So
Okay, so I have to jump in here only because we have so many authors and somebody else is jumping in. So
yeah,
we all recognize that that is a Maya Angelou quote. So good job, pastors, on using that one. But we have a lot of authors who are probably watching this, so we do not want to miscredit the great
sure, yes.
late Maya Angelou. So just hopping in on that.
See, so I had I had been a minister for many years. I worked with teenagers, and I never knew where the quote came from. So it's just
There you
something
go.
that people had said very often, and other people had told me, and so yeah,
It's a good one. It's a good. It is. And it's totally true. And you can only create that experience. You can have a piece of that experience through the online person that you put out there, but compared to what you're doing behind your booth, when you're really
hmm
like seeing a person, sometimes shaking a hand, communicating, seeing each other's facial emotions and stuff. And I've seen you, do a little bit of chameleoning behind your booth and
oh yeah.
connecting with different people in different ways. So very,
So
very true. Very true.
and it's interesting in my book. It's available on my website. You should get it.
I have
Uh,
put the link in the private chat for those of you following.
all right. So you mentioned all the things like your facial expressions, and you've seen me at my booth. One of the things you'll see whenever I phone it in, and just I hardly ever talk to these people. It's when they're wearing a mask that covers your whole face, because all my soft skills are gone. If I can't read your emotion, if I can't read your face and see how I'm responding, I have no feedback.
And
It's the
in
same as
our
the
world,
internet. I'm shooting into the void.
sure. And
Yeah.
to clarify for those watching, we're genre fiction authors, so a lot of times what we're working at is a Comic-Con where sometimes there will be cosplay where somebody is completely covered and you can't read their face, and sometimes it's hard. You'll get the ones that have helmets and their face is covered, and I feel so strange. I'm like, I'm saying hello to you, but I'm not even sure if you see me or if you're looking in my general direction. So yeah, that is
And sometimes
yeah.
they'll be playing the character well, and if you also can't see it, like here's an example. I had a booth helper who was so excited because he bought, when the Mandalorian came out, bought a Mandalorian mask, and he was wearing it. People were like, oh, it's a cool mask, coming up, kind of talking to him, and he's kind of doing the whole stoic thing. I'm like,
Mhm.
after a while, I told him, this was one of my nephews. I'm like, dude, you gotta. And I talked to him when he did. I kept giving him hints like, it's really hard to communicate with the mask on, and I need you interacting with the customers.
Yeah,
That's why I brought you along, and
yeah,
and I told him later on, like towards the end of the segment, I'm like, listen, dude, just please don't wear the mask.
yeah.
You haven't sold, like, you were selling some books for me before. Now you haven't sold a single thing since. It's not because the mask isn't cool. It's because you can't communicate on
It's
all
very.
the ways that you're supposed to, using the soft skills.
It was
And
definitely, as one of our viewers was saying, he says during the pandemic, it made it really hard. It was another barrier to us pitching during the pandemic. So
yes, it was very
yeah, that's
difficult.
tough.
All right, so here are some things you've got to know, and let me see where I am on my slideshow. Am I? No, not that. Okay, we're talking about events now. You got to know your products. So you have tight hooks. Know your tropes. Be able to deliver your elevator pitch when somebody comes up. So my booth, and I'll show some examples of my booth later on with some pictures. I have a lot of books. I've got more than 100 titles in print. Not all of them make my booth table, but a lot of them do. So I have a lot of things. People say, "Well, tell me about your books." You can't tell somebody about 100 books in 90 seconds. You just can't. But if you can tell people about your the series real tightly. I'm like, I can do all of my series, and I think I write like 11 different series. I can do them all in about 30 to 45 seconds, like total, not each, like total. I'll point at a series. I'll be like, this here is this one's female Percy Jackson and werewolves versus Cthulhu. This one over here is like John Wick versus evil Legolas. This one is City of Ember meets I Am Legend. This one over here is, and people just like blown away. We call it a high concept pitch. Something where at least like something meets something. And if you can do that in such a way where that they're going to know at least one of the things and probably something about one of the others, they don't have to know intimately both of those, but they're going to know something about it, and that's going to trigger a positive response. Go, okay, yeah, and that's also going to bring quality. If they saw, if they either read or saw I Am Legend, and they just kind of know a little bit about like City of Ember, be like, oh, that sounds great. Actually, I love zombie stuff. And then I tell them, well, it's actually not zombies. It's a completely different kind of creature, but it's post-apocalyptic. And then we start a conversation that leads, that deepens and hopefully results in a sale for me. And then an amazing read for somebody else. It's one of my better books. According to my wife, it's my wife's favorite book I've written. So the other thing is know your customer. So I want to show you something. This is something I developed. It all is in this book here. It is a downloadable graphic for our mentees on the Working Writers Mastermind. And I got to remember how to. Okay, stop sharing. I'm going to share something else. I think I'm going to share something else. Oh, here we go.
While you're pulling that up, I will just share. So what Chris is talking about is we do have this Working Writers Mastermind. Once a week, we meet. We cover a very relevant topic, and every week that we meet, we have our video. We have a slideshow. We have resources, and you can also get your questions answered either live during the stream on whatever the training is, or in our private group also, where you have access to all four of us to provide that feedback for you. But I know I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing this. If I don't know if you have the capability of making it a little bit bigger for us, Chris, that would be awesome. And now we can't hear you, sir. Let's try to get your voice back.
There we go. Okay.
There we go. Good.
Perfect. So I built this as an overview, as if this was like a role-playing game, like character sheet. So you want to take who your customer is and really distill them down into like your one ideal kind of a buyer. And I thought about this because I had a customer who came up and actually they were very interested. These are people that came back later and bought the books. I said earlier that you get the distractions. Like there's nothing worse than you have somebody they're going to buy, and then their phone goes off, and then their friend's like, "Oh no, I'm over here. Oh, I'll come find you," and then they just walk away with their phone in their ear. Or a screaming kid suddenly just like derails the entire conversation where somebody is in love with this idea of this book that you've just told them about. But you can look at at people when they come by, and this was one of those where I think they had some just very difficult kids, like junior high kids who were just not being at the show. Mom and dad were nerds. Like the dad was wearing a Jane hat from Firefly. Mom was wearing like a Metallica t-shirt or something. Like these were my people, right? All right. So these are people who are like, we would probably hang out like on a Thursday night and have a good time, and what we're doing wouldn't even matter. So I kind of distilled these people, at least who I imagined these people are as my typical buyers, into a character sheet, and then created a character sheet to match. So I don't know her name, but I made up a name because you want to give this thing a personality. Ava's 44 years old. She's divorced but remarried. She has a blended family. She and Joe, I think his name's Joe. I guess it is now. They've got 3 kids. One they share, one each from a previous marriage. They like Star Trek, MCU movies. They go to live concerts and camping. No real particular life goals. They definitely don't have a 5-year plan. But she talks about she wants to run for school board and have an influence and a voice. She probably won't. She's a gas station manager. They make an estimated $84,000 combined, so they're lower middle class. upper low class, I guess, however you want to define kind of what that looks like. So here we go. Ava, she had a toddler and a husband in tow, dressed in an old Metallica concert shirt. She was wearing the Jane hat from Firefly. She had a couple of teenagers. Looks middle-aged. She's wearing glasses. Husband's carrying a bag with a whole bunch of purchases. And we're at a Comic-Con, so he was buying like some bobbleheads or action figures or something. Bingeable media. She likes things like Shannara Chronicles, Star Trek DS9. She had mentioned some of her favorite books. It would be Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, and Dune. She lives not too far away in a rural town. She owns a cramped home with Joe. This up here is something internal in the book. I talk about just the size of the show. Everything from her education to her personal, like her preferences on stuff. The more you know about your consumer and who your ideal consumer is, the more ideas that's going to help give you when you're trying to figure out where should I be selling my books at. So let me jump back into my slideshow here.
And just a time check here, you have
Yeah.
about 20 minutes.
Perfect.
Also, I just sharing an experience from Doug in our watching room here. His live sales experiences, he used to have people submit free raffle tickets to win books. It was the newsletter sign up was optional, but it helped skyrocket his newsletter. However, his sales suffered because so many people were trying to win the free book rather than pay for it. So he did a good job. It was a great tool for him growing his list, but not so much for growing his bottom line.
Yes, and I have used that. I used that earlier as I started my list building, and I found it's just better to close the sale. If you close the sale, a lot of times, and I talk about this in a different session that we did, I'll have a tablet with I'll hand over the tablet. Like, yeah, just type in your info in all the boxes. It's a Google form. You'll automatically add them to my newsletter right immediately on site. I tell them, you know what? How about I just give you a digital book now for free? Now that you bought a book, do you want to get on my mailing list? It's free right now. Just do it. And people, yeah, that sounds good. They enjoyed the conversation at the booth, and that was enough value to get them to add their information. And then they're immediately onboarded. I don't have to worry about raffles and like, can I read this email address even? So I found if I just work harder to impart value and then invite them directly onto it in that easiest way possible, just there you go. Just you type it in. It'll be quicker that way. They'll gladly do it. They'll spend 20 seconds, type in an email address. Oh, you're going to get a free book too. And it's usually a teaser, like a short story in a series maybe that they liked. I've actually got about 5 tabs open on that tablet any given time. So if they're looking at one really on the fence, like, oh, I actually have a short story in that world. Let me send that to you. All you got to do is sign up for the newsletter. If it's not right for you, feel free to unsubscribe. And like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. And then they do it. So that has proved to be more effective for me and easier for me too, as well as keep retaining my sales. Let me jump back over my notes. Okay, so the event booth. You want to know your shows and the setup. Like, what are the traffic patterns like there? How soon should I set up in advance? How do I know, or do I know how long my setup will take me and what it should look like? Where am I going to park? Do I have lodging, etc.? Do I need power or Wi-Fi? How soon do I need to book that table or a booth? And what is going to be the cost on that? So what are my expectations, and are they reasonable for this show? So if I go to a small show at a mall where I expect I can sell 60 to 80 books, that's going to be a different expectation. I'm not going to expect I'm going to sell 150 books at that show, but I would expect 150 books at something like a C2E2 or a Twin Cities Con. So what's the average attendance there? And that's one of the things that's going to help you dial in on what do these shows look like. And I've got a guide for that in here. What's my local tax rate? Taxes should be on your radar. I hate them. I think they're immoral and unethical. That's me on my soapbox. However, if you don't pay them, men with guns will come and end your author career. I mean, you can write from prison, I guess, but you're still probably going to have to pay your taxes from prison now. I would rather be out and enjoying life on the patio like Jerry is than being in prison. But I'd probably get a lot more writing done in prison. That's a bad idea. Never mind. Okay, so there's a lot of unwritten rules about selling. So when you're in the booth, little things like don't try to sell somebody your books when they're in front of somebody else's booth. Um, Jerry's got a story about this, about a lady who's literally left her booth and came over with her books and started talking because she had a line like 6 people long. I was there. I watched it happen. It was crazy. I had a guy, one of my booth helpers, he called back to somebody who they didn't kind of look back until like get their attention until they were kind of over in the other booth looking at something else. And then they turned their left and they came back and they bought a book for my booth helper. And I told my booth helper just loud enough that all my booth neighbors could hear it. I'm like, I'm so glad you made that sale, but you should not have talked to that person. He was already gone. Once you get about a step on either side of the booth where you can try and engage them. If you don't do that, now you're poaching customers. And I said it loud enough so everybody else knew that I wasn't there to poach. And actually, a lot of the people like gave me the slow, quiet clap for correcting this guy. And he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, wasn't thinking about that." I'm like, absolutely, I get it. It's one of those little things you got to pick up, but you've got to be a good booth neighbor. The one thing that will surpass even your fame as a writer and as an author is your reputation on a sales floor. If you're doing the Comic Cons or going to a book event, or even going to your local farmers market, if you're a dick to your booth neighbors, you won't be back.
Well, and contrarily, I want to add, so that's coming to it from that negative space. You and I have boothed beside each other quite a bit over the past few years. Ben Wolf, he's sometimes in our lineup too. Tiffany Rose Nickel. We've got a handful of people. Ethan Zolotar, Rachel Litfin. These are all like we booth beside each other. And the thing is, once you're kind with your booth neighbors, then you get to this place where when you've been beside each other enough and you know each other's books, if somebody comes up to my booth, and I'm a hard sci-fi girl, if they come up to my booth and they're like, "Yeah, I like kind of that gory but humorous stuff," I'm like, "Oh, you don't want my books, but I know who has them." And I can say, "You want to go check out Chris's books, you want to go check out Ben's books," I can lead them into the right place. And I know that it comes back to me too. Like we take care of each other. So you have to go into those live sales with that abundance mindset that we have to all like help each other out and wait our turn sometimes, and know that if we're waiting our turn and if we're sending people to one another, it's going to come back to us too.
Absolutely. And
you're
speaking
at
of
15 minutes right now.
Yep. So, like, speaking of that mindset, was my next unwritten rule: be positive, even if you've got to fake it. If you're feeling down after a bad interaction, and you'll have bad interactions because guess what? Not everybody that's going to come to the show is going to be nice. A lot of them are bringing their own personal baggage in, and they suck. And they're going to take it out on you because you're there chained to a booth, and they're going to just be a dick to you. They're going to be they're going to do that to make themselves feel better. It's not, knowing that does not make it suck less. But so sometimes you get up, you walk to the bathroom, you go over, you get a Coke, whatever your method for coping with that is, do that. But sometimes it's okay to walk away from the booth, do a mental reset, come back, and then scene. Like you're an actor, just turn it back on. And you can do it. If you kind of create this booth persona. I know Jerry has mentioned before she has seen the real me versus the booth persona. They are slightly different. And you go back into that space and you keep selling, because if you don't, now the characters that you have made come alive in this story don't get to live because you couldn't close the sale.
Hey, I want to say it did take me about a year before you showed me the real you, though. It was like, I was like, and it might have taken a little something that was hidden under your booth that was empty by the time you came around. But Doug makes a really great point, how authors and artists can get together also to share expenses in other ways, hotel costs, travel costs, event appearances, splitting booths and whatnot. We definitely do that as part of the Working Writers Mastermind. The other thing I just want to point out in here without going into it deeply, you talk about a persona behind the booth, and you talk about like being positive. Women, and especially young women, you may have some different lines. I want you to know that even if you're not a part of the Working Writers Mastermind, all you have to do, reach out to me, either comment on Chris's page or on mine, and both myself and the other Working Writers Mastermind coach, Tiffany Rose Nickel, we will give you a free 20-minute session on just how to be safe as a woman, and in, like I say, in many cases, especially as a young woman, when you're doing these live events. So that's not what this is about, but if you want a free session on that, the two
We
female
should
coaches will
maybe
set it up for you.
do a special session that isn't in the regular rotation. That's just an add-on.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. There are little things. Safety is always big. I remember I was at a show. I was staying at the hotel down the street, and this is a late night show filled with adults, and I literally was dressed as a superhero. I think that day I had to be the superhero, and literally stopped somebody from drinking and driving. Like, was literally just like grab him, like I'm like we're side hugging, and like, no man, talking it out, waiting for his friends to finally convince him, like, oh, you're going to stay here with us, you're going to crash on the floor or whatever, but you're not driving. That's something. And that was I think that one was a guy, but whole different ball of wax when it comes to girls. I did a show in that same venue where I had to be con dad for a bunch of girls who were like, hey, there's a guy here and we're not safe. We feel safe around you. And I'm like, is it the dad bod? I don't know, but whatever. I will help keep you safe. And Jerry's got a lot of great advice on how to mitigate certain kinds of circumstances. So definitely take her up on that. We're a very multifaceted mastermind group here. So this is the last bonus rule I want to throw out there. And then I'm going to skip some of my stuff to kind of get to the last things. Other vendors here, probably not your primary audience. I do sell a lot of books to other vendors, but I usually scan for like at Comic-Cons or events that are like multi-day passes. If it says that it's only that day, I pitch them harder because I know they're only here today. If they're not here through the whole thing, they're not going to come back and buy. If it says that they're a vendor, because usually there's a different color or a line of text that says that they're a vendor, they come up like, I'm going to treat you like a peer now. Feel free to take a look. I don't give them the hard sell because if they're having a bad day, they don't want to buy something. They want to connect with you. And so be that good booth neighbor instead. And very often that does actually lead to sales, just treating them like, yeah, we're all here. We got cool stuff. If you like buying, cool, check it out. So not every event is a sales event. Just make sure you know how to use this event in your marketing, your career toolkits. Sometimes an event is more about, and this is like a Barnes & Noble event, I make hardly any money. And even if I sell a lot of books, I make very little because of the way the distribution systems work. You got to buy them through the wholesaler. So there's a whole like extra people taking cuts of the pie. I think I make less than $1. I make less than 50 cents when I sell a book at Barnes & Noble, but I'll come and do an event because I'm connecting those people to me and to my author brand, and they might buy from me later or get on my newsletter. So some of those bad events you do because it's really good for networking. There's all the cool people are going to be there, or it's really good for connecting with people and getting them on your mailing list. And all things are very important. They're not all equally important. Just know where it sits in the hierarchy and then do all of the things as if it's the most important thing ever. So you should know what success for that show looks like to you. I was at a show in Chicago not long ago. My booth partner, because he was right next to me, we booked a very large space. His booth was like $1,000. For him, he had his best sale ever. And I outsold him quite a bit, just being kind of an expert on this. And I thought it was a terrible show. But he was just stars in his eyes. Like, this is amazing. I made so much money. I made so many new fans. I'm like, so sometimes what you think looks like success to somebody else is going to be fantastic. For me, it didn't quite pass muster. I rebooked it. I'm going to do it again, partly to see how excited he was and keep coaching him, because I do that too. If you want to come and do a booth next to me, I'll absolutely coach you. Sign up for that Working Writers Mastermind where Jerry had the link. But if you know what success looks like, you've got a metric then to try and hit. And once you know where the finish line is, you'll know how hard do I got to run, how do I got to pace myself, and when do I got to sprint, right? So we're running out of time here. I'm going to skip a few of the things I would normally talk about, but let me talk about this one last thing here, and then we'll open it up for a couple minutes on the Q&A. So connecting with audiences is huge. I'm so far off my notes now that well, I'm not off my notes. I just skipped a bunch. I have no idea where we are on the slideshow, so I'm just going to stop it. So connecting with audiences. There are many people that I've sold to only after speaking with them regularly for many years in a row at the same show. The thing that the indie authors can do that big presses cannot do is connect with our readers. So here, and this is a quote from my book, Sell More Books.
Again, the link is in the chat.
Here's the quote. Here's what sales really is: building relationships. One of the biggest tools in our box of sales tricks is the fact that a buyer gets to meet the author, and that adds huge intrinsic value. And in this day and age of information traveling at the speed of a mouse and keyboard, consumers want to keep in touch with the author. And that brings me to my next point. The continued author/reader relationship is critical. It could be the topic of an entire extra book, but I'm trying to keep this succinct. My biggest regret is not sticking with my newsletter early on, and I came into it only after releasing several books. My mailing list has been pivotal to retaining and communicating with readers, and it's a far better tool than any social media platform. Tammy Lebrecht's Newsletter Ninja might be the best investment of less than $20 that you can make in your author knowledge. You know what else is pretty good?
Or you know what else is pretty good is joining the Working Writers Mastermind. So I do want to give you a chance to wrap up and to see if we have any last questions that are out there. But a couple of things. One, I am throwing into the chat right now the StreamYard link for the next session, which will be starting in less than 20 minutes. We're starting at 7:15 with Authors Ethical AI Usage. We will be talking about what it really means for the author community. We will also be walking through all of those training tools. Next, I want to share you one more time the actual Working Writers Mastermind link as well. We would love to have you. So it's workingwritersmastermind.com. We make it nice and simple. So feel free to check that site out. We have great content every single week, additional resources. You have access to all of us. We have had our one-on-ones our Ask Me Anythings this month have basically been one-on-ones, and we do have some great one-on-one packages as well. And again, I did share the link earlier in this same chat for Chris's book on selling more books at live events. So with that, Chris, I'll let you wrap it up. And if anybody else has any more questions, throw them into the private chat or onto one of the comments, and I will do my best to get that to Chris before we finish this one up today.
Perfect. I'm just gonna throw out some fun pictures of booths. What my booth looks like. That there is Ben Wolf. We had mentioned him earlier. We can see this, right? Perfect.
Mm-hmm, yes.
So these are just some examples. If you want to try and copy it, there are reasons that you'll see. I've got different iterations of my booth. Here's another one. You can see Rachel Litfin we had mentioned, and the booth right beyond that's Ethan, her fiance. Not just my booths, but other booths where I've been like impressed by kind of how what they look like. Yeah. Might be even a small one. Like this is like just a little 6-footer. Here's a little corner spot. You want to try and get eyes on yours. You want to have enough, but you also want to I worry that I'm drowning right now. I'm probably the next couple of years, I'm going to start scaling back. Here's the writer's block at C2E2. You see, do you see my mouse? Can you see that, Jerry?
I'm looking for your mouse now.
You don't see it moving? Okay.
I don't. Sorry.
Okay. If you look to the right on the upper right-hand corner, it says Dragon Steel. That right there, that's Brandon Sanderson right over there hanging out right next to me. So that was kind of fun. There it is. Yeah. You see, I'm only like he's right behind me on the other side in his own he's brought his own building with him. They build it overnight. It's super cool. Sometimes you get placed next to somebody cool. Like I got I was my first year I did C2E2. I was right next to Tom Cook. And now we're buddies. We talk sometimes online. Tom Cook drew He-Man, Masters of the Universe, and Jetsons and Scooby-Doo, like all these cool shows I watched as a kid. Like you get to meet your heroes sometimes, and usually they're cool. Usually,
it's very cool.
There's a little older version of my booth.
That is old. Look at that.
Yeah, I know, right? I forgot some of my bigger booth stuff, so that's why it looked like that. But that was the day I met Ethan. To the right over there, it was the Kansas City show.
There, yep, good stuff.
That was the day. That was it. The first day his second book came out. Actually, that was his launch.
Okay.
And yeah, old school there. I don't even know where that's at. But yeah, so there's a random lady.
Awesome stuff. All right. Well, Chris, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for those who joined us live, whether it be on Facebook or in the StreamYard. If you stick around, actually don't stick around. Click on the new StreamYard link. The new
I think the link is the same, actually.
Is it the same?
I think so.
I don't know. Anyway, we have Authors Ethical AI Usage, which I copied the link for it into the private chat, and that will be starting in about 15 minutes. Chris and I will be taking little breaks here before we start, so we will be closing this one and starting a new one. And it
is the same.
Oh, awesome. So
yep.
I invite all of you to please feel free to check out workingwritersmastermind.com if you mention having caught one of these replays, because this is a replay for us, but it's new for all of y'all. If you mention that, we may have a special little treat for you. Oh, Doug says it is a different code. So make sure that we're using the one that we put in the private chat.
Okay. I was looking at the code you were posting here, which is
the one that I was sharing this one. So thank you guys so much. Check out the Authors Ethical AI Usage coming up in about 15 minutes. But Chris and I are going to sign off, and we're going to swap roles with me taking over and Chris being a moderator in the next one. And if you don't stick around, definitely check out these videos on Facebook after the fact. And you guys have a great evening.